Hello, everyone. So, decided to take a little bit of a break from all the bikes tonight, just chill out for a bit so we can get back into it. It's been a lot of work over the past few days. So, just a general Q&A. Ask me anything about bikes, anything in general. Is any questions you have about anything, send them through and we'll have a bit of a chat for 30 minutes. And then tomorrow we'll get back into the bikes. I think we've done it's been 8 days so far, 8 bikes. So pretty much split it up into three little sections. So we'll do this, then we'll do another batch, and hopefully by that time we'll have a bit more to talk about. But yeah, it's been pretty good so far. Stoked to see you guys have been watching them. But yeah, let's jump in and answer some questions. So where is the first question we've got? Got some nice hellos, plenty of familiar faces here. So the first real question that we've got is actually, we missed one here. So it's from Mackay Franklin. Would I recommend the 2019 Giant Trance 3? Hi, by the way. I think if you're talking about the 27.5 inch model, I think it'll be a good bike for just kind of just do it all trail riding. But I think the newer bikes on the market probably a little bit more in terms of what you're getting for the geometry, and the value is pretty decent these days. So if you can afford to get something a little bit newer, because the Trance, even though it was the 2019 model, the geometry was a little bit dated then. But I think it's still a good bike if you just want something that's got 27.5 inch wheels and you want to have a bit of fun, something a bit more throwable. Then it would be a good option. But if you want something a little bit more stable at speed, there's probably a few other options on the market. So, we got heaps of questions coming through. Awesome. Mookie, good to see you around again. What's my thoughts on Medina Bike Park? I've only been there once and it was very, very wet. So it's kind of around August, I think. So coming out of winter. So there's still snow at the top of the mountain. So when I went, it was very, very wet. The soil was very clayey and loose. So I didn't necessarily get the most out of my time there, but it looks pretty awesome from all the trails that I saw. But I would definitely recommend going in a time of the year when it's a little bit drier, so towards the summer kind of months. It would definitely be worthwhile going there. I mean, you've got a ridiculous amount of elevation, so if you're looking for some crazy elevation, get some shuttles in, I think it's a great option. And if you're really into the kind of more free ride stuff, big jumps down the bottom, there's plenty of options there. And then if you like raw trails as well, there's plenty of that stuff there too. So I think it's really, really good place if you go at the right time of year. Xavier asks, are there any enduro or downhill racing in Sydney? Not in Sydney itself. The closest one you're going to find is either Green Valleys down south in terms of racing, or up north, you're talking Ourimbah is probably the closest. Ben Walls asks, if I gave you $5,000, what bike would you buy? Depends on what we're talking about in terms of dollar value. If we're talking US dollars, Australian dollars, or something like that. My favorite bike, if I was to buy one bike at the moment, it's an e-bike, but the Orbea Rise is probably my favorite bike on the market at the moment. But if I had $5,000 at the moment, I'm probably looking for kind of more of a 120 mil trail bike. So that new Giant Trance tickles my fancy a fair bit. Just trying to think what else there would be around that 120 mil mark, that around 5K that I'd probably like. That's probably one of the, if I'm looking for a shorter travel bike, that's probably one of the ones that I'd probably get at the moment. But yeah, my favorite bike on the market at the moment is the Orbea Rise. Actually, and maybe an Occam as well. An Occam's a good option too. What are my thoughts on the 2020 Trek Top Fuel? So we'll probably look at Trek, maybe not tomorrow, probably the day after. So one time on the weekend where I've got a bit more time, because there's plenty to look at there. So I'd like to give it a bit more attention. I think it's a good bike. Yeah, if you're looking for kind of that shorter travel trail bike, I think it's a good option. Pretty similar to that. The new Trance sits in between probably the Trek Top Fuel and the normal fuel. So probably look a little bit with Trek. You're not necessarily getting the best value for money, but they do make some great bikes. The frames are really nice, so don't have anything really bad to say about them there. But we're looking at price. So you're looking at 5,299 for the build with decent spec that I would probably get. So you're kind of looking SID fork, SLX kind of stuff. Geometry wise, what are we looking at? So I think it's got around about a 66 head angle, so 76 seat angle. So decent geo on there as well. So I think it's a nice bike, just a little bit expensive for what you're getting. But yeah, I would definitely be happy if I got one. Ben asks, will there be an overview for each discipline or just each brand? So not sure if this is referring to, but with the buyer's guide, I'll have the individual proper buyer's guides coming out soon. They just take a lot of work to put together. And again, this year, there hasn't been, like, a lot of brands have been just keeping the same bikes. So I've been trying to push it back a little bit just to wait to see if there was more 2022 bikes. But half of the bikes are the same for 2021 as 2022. So I didn't want to rip you guys off by doing the same video 2 years in a row. So there's enough now so that I can actually kind of do a proper video. So I'm getting to that now. It would be nice if Vitus decided to release their 2022 bikes, but that's the main one. But other than that, I'm pretty much good to go. So I've written the scripts for the trail and budget hardtails, so I just need to film those this weekend. So the garage is getting fixed up from all the flooding tomorrow, so fingers crossed. But it's raining, storming now in Brisbane, so I'm not sure if that will be able to go ahead. It might get flooded again, so we'll see what happens. Kristen asks, is the Canyon Spectral 5 a good trail bike? Yes, I think it's a great trail bike. The new one that just came out, if you're looking at that one, I think the spec's great for the money. You do need, it's kind of more towards the all mountain side of the side of things these days. So you really need some decent trails to get the most out of it. If you need some decent speed. So it is a pretty long bike these days. But yeah, I think it's a great bike. Creative asks, have I looked at brand Jamis? Had a look around here and there. They aren't too big in Australia. They've got some cool suspension, but the geometry is a little bit on the dated side, but I think they still make some really cool bikes. Just because it's got dated geometry on some of the things doesn't mean it's a bad bike. I still think there's a lot of bikes that have more conservative geometry that actually would suit a lot of riders. I mean, I prefer something that's not super, super long. Like a lot of the bikes that have come out recently wouldn't be my first choice. I mean, something like, say, for instance, there's like the Norco Sight, which has like a 500 mil reach. Or 490, like it's a pretty long reach, like it's a big bike, and for me, I just wouldn't get along with it, especially for the trails that I ride. Whereas something like that Sisk UT, which modern but not over the top, I get along with really well. So just because it's not the longest bike out there doesn't mean it's not good at all. So I think, yeah, it's really different geometry suits different riders, different terrain and stuff like that. So yeah, I think they make some cool bikes. Harry asks, is there good intermediate technical lines at Mount Stromlo heading down the Soon? Yeah, I think they've made a few more little tech lines here and there. There's not like crazy tech. There's a lot of flow and jumpy kinds of lines as well, but there's enough there, small little tech sections, and there's a decent tech section off the back of the mountain now, I think, as well, if you're looking for crazy techie stuff, but there's a lot more on the flowy side of things. Raiden Harper asks, what bike am I currently riding? So I've still got that Siskiyou T8, and then I have my Marin Bobcat Trail, but need to get back into riding a fair bit more. Lucas W asks, do I reckon it's worth buying Amazon rip-off mountain bike product, or should buy a real thing? It really depends, like, on the actual product. I mean, some of the rip-off stuff's the same stuff there as other stuff, like since like those Fuka pedals, they're pretty much the same as the race face. They just use a cheaper parts when it comes to the axle. The body's the same, and I've seen so many pedals on the market that come from the same factory that just have different brand names on them in other molds as well. So I mean, I'm not an elitist, like buy from the brand, respect that, because it's all coming from the same factory at the end of the day. So just buy what's the best value to you, really. new Canyon Talk CF7 or CF9? Let's take a quick look. We'll go share screen. Canyon Talk. There we go. CF9. So you got in Fox Factory suspension. We'll put this view here. So Fox Factory here. So CF9. Or we've got the CF7. So you're getting Zeb, Super Deluxe, GX Eagle. I mean, 5649 and what price are you paying? I mean, that's a huge difference. So let's see if 7 there. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could justify that price difference. I would probably definitely go that CF7 for me personally. Go back to normal view. What's the best hardtail for 2,500 Australian dollars? So, as you would have known, I've put a community post out the other day talking a bit about my best value bikes. Is coming out soon for the trail one, but don't want to give too much away from the video. But we'll where am I looking at now? I have 13 bikes that are competing for the top 10. I've got my top 5. But if we're looking at the best value, I'm going to have to say, really depends on the riding that you're doing. I think that Merida Big Trail 600 is definitely up there if you live in Australia. There's that Giant Fathom 2 as well. And I think the Ragley Big Owl 1.0 is probably my favorite. Just looks sick. Jim Jam asks, what bike lines up to the next? So on Saturday, we'll probably do Trek. And then tomorrow, have to think about it. Might do YT. We'll do that. Answer that one. Spinning Wheels. If you haven't checked out Spinning Wheels today, check out his latest video. He actually gave me a shout out, so thanks for the shout out, man. Yeah, so he did a kind of more about like over biking and stuff like that. So should you buy a bike that's good for 90% of your riding, or you're just buying that extra travel bike or enduro bike for that 10% of the gnarly stuff that you might ride? So I'm a big fan of just getting the bike for 90% of your riding. So that's why I ride that a trail bike as opposed to an enduro bike. But he's asking any plans for riding this weekend. He's off to the Sunshine Coast to try out Sugar Bag Dual Slalom. That sounds awesome. It's absolutely pouring at the moment, so I'm not too sure. I might go out for a mellow ride because it's probably been my first ride back from my back's still not the best, so might do a more mellow XC ride. We'll see how I go. Got 35 people. That's good to see. MF asked try transition bikes. Actually, if they brought out a new Smuggler, actually I like the old Smuggler. That's probably one of my favorite kind of traily kind of bikes as well. So that's a good option. Ben asks, how much do you think I could sell a 2021 Siskiyou T7 secondhand? So it's the exact same as the 2022 model. I mean, they aren't in stock at the moment, so you could probably get a half decent price for one at the moment. If someone's trying to get one before Christmas, I think they arrive just after Christmas. So I reckon you could probably get anywhere between 25, 2,600 for one. It's tough to say with the used bike market at the moment. It's pretty crazy. Roden asks, have I been to Boomerang Farm? Not yet. I have not been there yet. Bryce says, what's my best bike enduro? If I'm picking, like, if we're talking value, tough to say. At the moment, I haven't done as much looking this year, but I'd probably say in terms of value, probably the Vita Summit's probably the best value if you're looking for a carbon bike. Yeah, that would probably be the best option in terms of value for money, I'd probably say. But if I was picking my favorite enduro bike I've ridden, it would be the Bird AM9. I really like that bike. Jim Jam, how much more effective is a 180 versus 200? I definitely noticed the 200 up front. As to the percentage wise, how much different? Maybe like 10, 15%, but it's something that I have noticed. James asks, where's the best place to sell a bike? In my experience, Facebook Marketplace on the mountain bike groups, not just the normal marketplace, you get too many tire kickers, but if you join the local swap and sell, so in New South Wales, when I used to live there, it was New South Wales Mountain Bike Trading Post. That's where I always made the sales. Tried Gumtree and all those other places and stuff like that, but I just got too many people wasting my time. Mountain Bike Boss, what's the best trails in Brisbane that I've ridden in personally what I've ridden. I really like Mount Cotton and the trails out of Ironbark, Sanford kind of area there. I really enjoyed those. MF asks, carbon versus aluminium rims. I prefer alloy rims in aluminium rims personally. I just like the way I spoke about this. I think it was in the first Trail Talk Show episode. I just prefer the way that alloy, so carbon wheels, you have to spend a fair bit to get ones that are actually proper compliant. The light bicycle and car nexty ones, they're pretty stiff. So you'll notice when you're pushing into the corner, you actually have to lower the pressures a little bit because they're so stiff, they don't flex into the corner. Alloy rims flex in a little bit to the corner, which actually gives you a bit more grip. And that was the main thing that I noticed. You will notice the carbon rims will accelerate a fair bit quicker. That's one thing that I did notice. But if you get a good set of alloy rims, I think you're going to be better off in terms of value and performance. Again, unless you're really looking for a fast, kind of responsive kind of ride, then you probably go carbon. But to be honest, I've had better experience just getting alloy rims. Big Hippo asks, what upgrade should I do on my 2022 D7? The main upgrade that I'd probably do is probably put some tubeless tires on there. So some nice tires, something that's like a Maxxis Dissector or something. Or if you do some faster trails, maybe something like a Maxxis Recon's a good option. And then set those up tubeless. And then the next thing I'd probably upgrade is either the brakes or the fork would be the next upgrade that I would do. Mackay asks, if I had $2,000 budget in Australia, what would I get? Probably the Merida Big Trail or something like a Polygon Siskiyou D6 or something like that. So that would be my hardtail and then my dual suspension option. Kevin, does Australia need more direct mountain bike parts and supplies? I feel like you kind of got for accessories and parts and stuff like that, Pushies and Mountain Bikes Direct cover most of the market. There's always a shortage in some things that we need, but I think that's just a general shortage in the stock arriving in Australia. I don't think it's more from the actual companies themselves not getting it. Like it needs to be like Shimano need to bring in more stock and stuff like that. So I think at the moment 2 is enough. And then you've also got stuff like Bicycles Online, 99 Bikes that do a fair bit in terms of the bikes themselves. So yeah, I wouldn't say that we need to. I don't think there's a big gap in the market. Xavier asks, what do I think the best value for money bike brand is? If you check out on the channel, did a best value mountain bike brand video. I did like a full tier list. Check out that video. That's probably going to be the best point. I go through most brands, and then there's a part 2 for that. So check out those. But you typically your direct to consumer brands, bike shop brands in terms of like you got stuff like Marin's pretty good value, Giant's half decent value. If you're looking at the bike shop brands, and then online you've got stuff like YT, Polygon, Common Soul, all those kind of brands like that. And then Merida from bike shops as well. Jim Jam asks, how long have I been riding? Around about 5, it's probably 6-ish years. Wait, around 5 years now. Proper trail riding, but I don't do much crazy stuff, so I haven't really progressed much in the past 3 years. Subliminal Vibes, don't have a question. Just want to say thanks. Cheers, man. Merry Bikemas. Dylan Carroll, thank you for reminding me about Fazari. I always forget them. I will need to double check everything. But yeah, I love Fazari bikes. I think they make some great value bikes. Absolutely. Ben says, don't get a dual suspension for less than 2,500. Yeah, in Australia, it's tough to find a dual suspension for good value under 2,500. You kind of need to go to that 3,000 realm to get something that is pretty damn good. Standard, yeah, 25 to 33 grand is probably where you want to be spending. Yeah, Samir was definitely right there. Is the Common Soul Meta SX too much bike for enduro racing, free ride, and downhill? No, I would say that's exactly, if you're doing a mix of all that kind of stuff like that, I would definitely say that's what it's designed for. If you're doing enduro racing in Australia, I'd probably say it's too much bike, except for places like Medina and like the gnarliest of that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you're doing a mixer of all that kind of stuff, like proper free ride, downhill, and enduro racing, I don't think it's too much bike. It's pushing it for most enduro races in Australia, I'd say. I think you'd be better off on the AM. Even the AM is probably pushing it for a lot of those races. The TR is probably a better option, but yeah. Worked our way through most. Oh, no, still got plenty of questions coming in. 39 people. Awesome. We've already answered that. We've got Biking with Boggart here from the Philippines. Thanks for tuning in. Kristen asks, is there a big difference between the Spectral 5 and Siskiyou T8? Were they well suited for it? Just because it might upgrade to it? Yeah, so the wheelbase between, I think when we looked at the geometry on those ones on the Canyon, I think we looked at Canyon last night, there was around a 30 millimeter difference in the wheelbase. So that's pretty significant. So if you're doing a lot more climbing for descents and stuff like that, I think the Spectral is going to be a much better option. But if you're doing a bit of XC, trail riding, the odd enduro kind of stuff as well, then I think the Siskiyou T8 is probably going to be a better option. That Spectral really is for someone that's going to be doing a lot more advanced descents and that kind of stuff like that. Build, ride, shred. Do I like Cube bikes? Yeah, I think they make some great value bikes, especially in Australia. We've got some decent value on the Cube side of things. Again, more on the conventional side, I really like the Stereo 170. I think that's kind of, in terms of geometry, it's like in that good middle ground. Like it's not super long. I think it'll be a super fun bike. Playful for a bigger travel enduro bike. I think that's a really good option if you're looking for a fun bike to do more of enduro kind of stuff. The 150 is probably, again, for enduro race, I'd probably say it's more kind of like a long-legged trail bike. So it's not necessarily like super long wheelbase, so it's not going to be the most stable at speed, but you got a little bit more forgiveness in terms of suspension. But I think they make some really good bikes. They probably suit my riding style a little bit more. So not doing anything super crazy, except for that 170, you'd be able to get some pretty capable stuff on there. Mookie asks, what's my thoughts on rainbow parts on the T8? Would you like to see a different color? I like the purple. I think it's kind of cool. I'd like to see maybe one more toned down bike in the lineup, because I know that, the T7 and T8 is pretty out there for a lot of people. It might be nice to see something that's a little bit more mellow. But I haven't seen many people that have not bought the bike because of the color. But yeah. Biking with Boggart asks, watching from the Philippines, what I recommend, Giant Trans X 27.5 or Siskiyou T8? I'd probably say the Siskiyou T8, and especially from the Philippines, you'll probably be able to get a decent deal on that one there. Larry asks, how often should you wash your bike? I ride it twice a week in the wet and dry conditions. From most people I've talked to, like experienced bike mechanics and stuff like that, they are big fans of not washing the bike with water all the time, getting it wet, washing it, because it's just gonna get water down. Not necessarily like they've got, the suspension has seals and stuff like that, but the more water they're introducing, it's the more chance you're going to be driving stuff into the seals and stuff like that. So if you're getting the bike super muddy, it's already wet, you might as well rinse it down, get the mud off. But if you're riding in the dry, I would only just wipe it down, get rid of the dust, and then clean your drivetrain. But I wouldn't be washing the bike with water too much all the time. Just wash it when it's actually properly dirty, but keep your drivetrain clean, or just wipe down the suspension with a microfiber towel that's clean. So keep everything clean, but don't necessarily be wetting it all the time. Samir says tips for racing, representing my school at Threadberry Interschools. Awesome, man. It's if I've learned, and it's like from when I've learned, and it's like when I've been racing it, I've raced at Cannonball Festival 5. I've done the All Mountain and Flow twice, and both times it wasn't my cardio that let me down. It was more my muscular endurance. So if you can work on getting your muscular endurance is pretty good. So it's mainly just standing up on the bike and being able to pedal. That's going to be what tires you out the most. So if you can do a fair bit of strength training around that, get your glutes nice and strong, all that kind of stuff like that. I'm sure there's a fair bit of cycling, mountain biking, descending kind of specific training out there. But that's probably what I'd focus on the most. And then also getting some sprinting, because it's very much intervals. Like you'll be sprinting, coasting, sprinting, going down those trails. They're pretty long as well. So don't go too fast out of the gate, but I have noticed that I've always had maybe a little bit down the bottom in terms of I could have pushed myself a little bit more. So don't go as fast as you can straight away, but definitely don't hold yourself back too much. But yeah, always just keep your eyes up. Don't look down at the ground. And then just keep breathing as well. Focus on keeping your breathing consistent. That would be the main things that I'd recommend. And then also, if you catch up to someone, don't panic as well. Like usually when you catch up to someone, you'll make a mistake or something like that. Just let them know early, and then they'll get out of your way and keep going. But yeah, if anyone's got some other tips for him, leave them in the comments as well. Build, ride, shed. I wash my bike once a month, but always clean it with muck off lube and gears after every ride. Yeah. So I mean, it depends on what you're going to be riding and stuff like that. I prefer Squirt Lube's my favorite. I think it's the best lube on the market. It usually lasts me around about probably 2 rides. But the main thing is just keeping that drivetrain clean. Bill Radshed, we answered that stuff about cubes. Pavan says, what fork on his D7? I think that Marzocchi Z2 is probably the best value fork to upgrade that on. The Spectral AL5, we covered that yesterday. So if you want to check out last night's video, I think it's a great value bike, especially if you're liking the descents. I think it's a good option for a more trail or mountain bike. Always washing your bike's killer and bearings. Yeah, so bearings in your suspension, it's going to absolutely make that stuff. You're going to have to service it a lot more frequently. Tall Divi asks, have I had a chance? So we'll probably get through the rest of these questions. I'll probably jump off for around 35 minutes. We're at 28 minutes at the moment. Have I had a chance to ride the Vittoria Mazza or Hutchinson Griffiths? No, I haven't. But I would like to try some different tires, definitely for sure. Bobcat Trail, do you think it would be okay with a 140 mil fork? I have an old one that I could put on, but not sure if it'd be too much different. I think 140 is probably pushing it. I think they probably 130. You could run a 140. It would be worth a try. It's 20 mil difference from factory, so it's not out of the realm. I wouldn't go 150 or anything, but yeah, should be fine. Amiga Dubs asks thought on Spank components. I think they make some good stuff, slightly on the heavy side, but other than that, really good. Mookie asks, how do I get a Bikes Online affiliate link? Looking for one for my channel. Is there any requirements? Send me a message on Instagram and I'll set that up for you. Andrew Johnson asks, between the Polygon Siskiyou T7 and T8 over break, do you think the sacrifice on fork is okay? Have her in the T7? I think It depends on what level you're riding. If you're more of an advanced rider, you'll notice that the fork's not quite as good. But if this is kind of your first dual suspension bike, you're upgrading from something pretty basic, you won't notice it too much. But it definitely, as you progress, that would be my first upgrade. Meta SX or Spectral, I think they're two pretty different bikes. The Spectral is more of kind of an all-mountain bike, whereas the Meta SX kind of more of that enduro free ride side of things. So it really depends on the riding. If you're doing some crazy descents and stuff like that, the Meta SX. But if you're looking for more something with a bit more versatility that can be better on more flowy and some flat trails as well, I'd go the Spectral. Alex, how do I suggest to save weight on my Alloy trail bike? First point of always trying to lighten weight your wheels, especially on a lot more of these bikes these days from factory. The wheels are always pretty heavy, so I'll go wheels and some slightly lighter tires. Recommendations for an LA rim, can't go wrong with DT Swiss. I think the 511s is probably one of the best on the market. Bill Gates, the man himself, taking time off from Microsoft to ask a question. Andrew, get the T8, yeah. But yeah, that the Recon, if you're starting off from basic, you won't notice too much. But if you've been on better forks before, yeah, you will notice it. Mark Anthony Kabile, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Would you recommend an enduro? Would you have an enduro e-bike? If I could have any bike at the moment, it would be an e-bike. I really want an e-bike. That Orbea Rise is my bike of my dreams. Jim Jam asks, am I a silent hub guy or a loud hub guy? I don't know. I think probably silent, just for the matter of filming. Loud hub could probably get annoying. Meta TR, AM, or Spectral for enduro racing in Oz. If you're at the, it depends on which state you're in and which races and stuff like that. If you got some gnarly descents, you might want to go the AM on that meta. But if you're looking for a proper race bike that can be, I mean, most of the enduro trails aren't necessarily that super ridiculous. I'd probably go the Meta TR or Spectral. Personally, tough decision. If you asked me last year, I would have gone the Meta TR. If you asked me this year, probably the Spectral. MF asks, do I think converting the T8 to a mullet is a good option? Definitely don't convert it to a mullet. If you've got maybe the 27.5-inch version and you run a 29 up front, then maybe. If you've got the 29-inch version, the BB is already way too low. But if you've got the 27.5, you could probably get away with it, but it's not something that I'd probably recommend. Magoo, man, going great. Thanks for tuning in, mate. Aussie Dave, have I been to Mount Buller? No, I have not. Dylan says, have I tried DVO suspension? Only briefly for like one descent. I thought it was pretty nice, but you need to know your way around it to get the most out of it. Rhubarb Barnia. I'm sorry. I just got a 2010 Giant Trans X3. What's my opinion on it? Doesn't matter my opinion on it, really. It's just go out and ride and have fun. That's the main thing. Like, it's an older bike, so it's going to be, obviously the geometry is going to be a little bit shorter, but it's just going to be nice and playful. So make the most of it, enjoy it. Mega Dubs, want to start a YouTube channel focusing on local riders and showcasing our trails. I was wondering what camera I use for my YouTube videos. So for my, just use a normal GoPro Hero 9 with the Max lens mod. And then I use a Windslayer on it, so the foam thing for POV stuff. And then for my third-person camera, I use a Sony A6400. And then for that, I have the kit lens as well as a 35mm prime lens, and then the 55 to 210 lens as well. I really recommend that camera. The only problem is there's lens stabilization, but not an inbuilt stabilization. You have to go to A6600, and at that point, you're kind of getting towards the A7 range of things. But I think if you're looking just starting off, if you're just starting off and you're not too familiar with the camera, I think the Sony ZV-1 is probably the better option. It's a point and shoot kind of style, but you can vlog with it as well as you can shoot 4K, do slow mo, all that kind of stuff that you'd need, and then just get some Rode mics for it, or it's got a little win thing for the mics from factory as well. So it's something like that, or you can get some wireless mics for it or not. But yeah, I think that Sony ZV-1 is probably the best YouTube style camera if you're looking for professional production quality than something with an interchangeable lens like the A6400. A7 from Sony is probably the best option, but I think for YouTube that ZV-1's more than enough, and there potentially might be a ZV-1 Mark II that might be coming out soon that has a slightly wider field of view that would be nice for the more vloggy stuff. Okay. God, we got so many questions. I'm sorry if I don't get through all of them. We need to finish up in a couple of minutes, but I'll just pick the main questions that we've haven't. Just quickly, Jim Jam, worth spending bike specific wash? Are you better with heavy duty car wash? I just use a little bit of just dish liquid and then with water. But yeah, I don't think the bike stuff's necessarily. I mean, the crush stuff is very nice. If you're looking for the more degreasing side of things, just washing the frame, dish liquid's fine, but it's good to get a good degreaser. But just keep the stuff away from your rotors. That's the main thing. Getting the rotor revive stuff from Crush is a game changer. I'd recommend getting that. But other than that, just normal drivetrain cleaner from Crush would be a good option. And then using just scrubbing brushes that you get from Coles. Joshua asks, how do I progress in jumping? Where do I think is a good place to go in Sydney? Check out my how to jump video. That's kind of got all my tips to kind of progress with jumping. If you want to get progressing, like once you can kind of jump tabletops around 3 to 4 meters, then probably Bear Creek's the place to go. If you're looking at smaller jumps, stuff like Crestwood Pump Track is really good. Hit the Terps, starting off with the smaller stuff there at Mill Creek's probably a good option. Yeah, those would be the main ones. It's hard to progress in jumping in Sydney. I'll say that there's not a lot of smaller stuff, but don't go to Bear Creek straight away. It's too big. Bill Gates upgrades for the T7. Yeah, I think the Z2 is probably my favorite fork still for that. And then other than that, you probably go Pike would be an option. I think the Z1 and Lyric's probably a bit of overkill for that bike. Hamish asks, do I like cheap Air Suntour forks? Don't like their cheap stuff. Their more expensive stuff's nice. Hamish asks, how's the best way to get into enduro racing with limited experience? I think just getting out and doing it. There's no better way than doing it. Just pick off if you're around Australia, the Superflow series is probably the best one to get into, and pick one of they're usually it's a more mellow series, so it's not like it's really state series or top tier stuff. They usually like to keep it pretty approachable for new people getting into it. So I would do something along the lines from them, and just do it. Pick the last 3 questions, the main questions, everything. There's a few of these that we can probably just go back and watch the live streams. Hamish built some trails and a Karen complained and they bulldoze him. It's usually always the way. And then Bernardo, this is the last question that I'll answer. Bando asks, Common Soul Meta AM29 Essential. Let's check a look. What upgrades should I do? Sorry, guys. This will be the last question. Big Hippo quickly answered this one. He said he's desperate for an answer. Is the Mega 275 a good bike after my D7? If you're doing proper enduro trails and you're absolutely smashing the descents, like hitting some hard stuff, and that's what you're doing mostly, like you're riding black trails. That's pretty much all you're going to be riding. Get the Mega. If not, and you're doing everything from XC trail riding, the flowy stuff, as well as the odd black trail and stuff like that, I think you're going to be much better off with a trail bike. So something like that. Nuke proof reactor. So something in between that would be a better option. So the main thing that stands out for me, I mean, there's nothing really to upgrade on that. Maybe like you could go grip 2 damper in the fork, but really, there's nothing really that I'd upgrade, to be honest. It looks pretty dialed. But yeah, anyway, that's it. If you've got any other questions, hit me up in tomorrow's live stream. Or we'll do a live stream on Saturday. Tomorrow I might just quickly do the video and then put that up. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Actually had decent people. Didn't think we'd have that many people with how late I organized it, but it's great to see we had 35 of you here. But as always, guys, thanks for watching. See ya.